You might be wondering how to clearly separate dissent, protest, agitation, and social movements for your UPSC answers, and whether they all mean the same thing. By the end of this video, you will be completely clear about these terms, their causes, why movements emerge, and the one key idea most aspirants miss. Think of this topic as a story of growing unease. A single complaint can spread and become a force that changes society. First, let's start with dissent, the smallest ripple where people, privately or publicly, disagree with prevailing norms or policies. Dissent is an attitude or idea that challenges the dominant view, like early voices against untouchability that later fed larger reforms. When dissent moves into the public square, it becomes protest or agitation. Visible actions aimed at a specific policy, institution, or incident. Agitation often looks like marches, demonstrations, or vocal campaigns meant to pressurize authorities or mobilize public opinion. When such actions become sustained, organized, and focused on broader change, they crystallize into a social movement. A social movement is not a one-day event. It is continuous collective action with an identity and a goal. Remember this key contrast. Crowds are temporary, institutional bodies are formalized, but social movements combine persistence with relative organizational flexibility. Now let's visualize why movements emerge using 5 structural forces: urbanization, industrialization, education, communication advances, and democratization. Urbanization brings people together physically and socially, creating a fertile ground for shared grievances to spread. Industrialization concentrates workers and creates class interests. Think of early labor movements arising from factory conditions. Universal education raises political awareness and builds networks in colleges and towns that can sustain mobilization. Communication revolutions, from print to the internet, amplify ideas quickly and help coordinate action across distances. Democratization and political rights create space for dissent to be voiced and organized, making movements possible without total repression. Next, the nature and types of movements help you frame answers in the exam. Know the difference between reformist and revolutionary aims. Reform movements seek change within existing structures using institutions like courts and legislatures, while revolutionary movements aim to replace the system entirely. Resistance or reactionary movements try to restore old privileges, and migratory movements involve large population shifts driven by economic or social pressures. In answers, link examples: welfare reform movements for reformist types, and the French Revolution for revolutionary change. Movements perform key social functions. They enable participation, exert influence on policy, and build collective consciousness over time. These functions make movements crucial for social change and thus very relevant for GS Paper 1 and Sociology Optional answers. Turning to theories, start with relative deprivation, which links perceived gap between expectations and reality to mobilization. Marxist theory locates movements in class conflict and contradictions of production, useful when discussing labor or agrarian movements. Resource mobilization theory explains why some grievances turn into movements. Resources, organization, media access, and elite support matter a lot. And Charles Tilley's ideas remind you that organization, mobilization, common interests, and political opportunities combine to create collective action that can escalate. Here's the exam-focused insight most aspirants miss. Grievance alone rarely produces a movement. Organization, resources, and political opportunity are often decisive. Make this point in mains answers. stress the combination of structural causes and enabling conditions rather than blame only poverty or anger. Movements also face practical problems: raising awareness, the free rider dilemma, recruitment phases, charismatic leadership, and external crackdowns. Explain the two-phase recruitment pattern: early committed activists followed by later joiners attracted by visibility when analyzing movement longevity. Leadership and ideology matter because leaders coordinate action, and ideology sustains commitment, interprets events, and legitimizes tactics. When you write, show how ideology shapes strategy and identity, and how leadership affects a movement's resilience or fragmentation. Most movements go through a life cycle: emergence, coalescence, formalization, institutionalization, and sometimes decline or transformation. Use this sequence to structure answers on movement trajectories or case studies in the UPSC exam. Now, a quick note on revolution. It is a rapid, fundamental change in political power and often involves violence and elite splits. Theories of revolution include Marx's class struggle, Davies' rising expectations, and Tilley's focus on organization plus opportunity. For example, mention how rising expectations followed by setbacks can trigger unrest in your essay or mains answers. Political socialization and political modernization are related themes. Socialization transmits values and civic habits, while modernization reshapes institutions and political behavior. In essays, link modernization to new demands for representation and the challenges of managing plural interests. To summarize simply, dissent becomes protest, protest can become a movement, and movements need structure, resources, and opportunity to succeed. Remember the types, functions, main theories, and the life cycle stages as the backbone of your answers. For UPSC, use clear definitions, link theory to Indian or global examples, and highlight the resources opportunity interplay in analysis. You're doing the right kind of thinking if you connect structural causes, organizational capacity, and political openings in every answer. If you practice linking case studies to theory, your mains answers will stand out for clarity and depth. Thanks for listening. Keep revising these concepts and test yourself with examples from Indian social movements and revolutions. For more structured notes, model answers, and quizzes on this topic, continue your preparation with EduRev and strengthen your mains and prelims readiness.